Hi guys, this is Sangamesh from Beginner Academy, and today we would be talking about Microsoft Azure Cloud, which is growing fast compared to its competitors AWS and GCP. Before we begin, let us talk about topics which we would be covering as part of this particular video. First, we would be talking about history history of Microsoft Azure. Second, what is Microsoft Azure? Third, what are the main benefits of Microsoft Azure? Fourth, product categories in Microsoft Azure. Fifth, underwater data center test, which is done by only Microsoft. That we would be talking about. Let us move to the first topic, that is history of Microsoft Azure. Azure was announced at PDC on October 2008. This was the first initial release of Microsoft Azure. Did you know Project Red Dog was the official code name for Microsoft Azure? If you didn't know, now you know. Mr. Dave Cutler and Amitabh Srivastava were the main key persons involved in bringing Azure to life. Hence, they were called as fathers of Azure. It is point to be noted, right? So, yeah. Next bit of a history. Azure was formally released in the year 2010 February with the name Windows Azure. Obviously, it is significantly later than its main competitor AWS, right? So obviously AWS got a little bit first mover advantages over Azure. So next bit of history is Windows on March 2014. Obviously Microsoft thought that Windows Azure is appealing to only Windows, and hence it renamed it to Microsoft Azure. That is on in the year 2014. Talk about what is Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure is an on-demand delivery of IT resources, which means whenever you require any resources, you just create it, use it, destroy it. You need to pay only for the duration what you have used it. In order to create any IT resources, you just need an active internet, a laptop, in order to connect to Azure portal. With this one, you can manage all the cloud service and resources provided by Microsoft. There are multiple ways you can connect to Microsoft Azure. The major one being, if you're a new starter, you will go for a portal. You will log in via portal and you can access Microsoft Azure and you can create any resource whichever you want and manage it. If you are a techie, you will go for a command line using Azure CLI or PowerShell commands. If you're an infrastructure as a code person, then you would use HashiCorp tools such as Terraform or a ARM template or a Biceps in order to create any resources as an infra as a code. Let us go to the next screen. As you can see, Azure can be accessed, since it's an online portal, can be accessed via URL https://portal.azure.com. As you can see, this is a screenshot of I have logged in using beginner.academy account, and with this with after logging in, I can create any resource and destroy it and manage it. In the next slide, you can see a screenshot of a magic quadrant for a cloud infrastructure and platform service. Here you can clearly see Microsoft Azure in a second spot, just behind AWS. By the way, this screenshot source is from Gartner, which was released in July 2021. Now let us talk about next topic, that is main benefits of Azure. The first one being it's pay-as-you-go pricing. Earlier, as I said, we need to pay for what we use, right? So yeah, the next being in Azure, 25 plus services are always free. For those services, Azure won't charge a single penny. Next benefit is popular services are free for 12 months. Once you create any account, any customer creates a Azure account, right? After that date, a 12 months period, many of the popular service Azure is giving for free. So that customer can use it and and understand what is Azure and all this bit, right? Next one is when you create a Azure account, Microsoft Azure gives you 200 USD credit. With using this credit, any customers can create any resources and consume it and test it, or they can test it out their application in Microsoft Azure. But note that it is valid. This Azure credit is valid only for 30 days. After 30 days, if there is unused money is there, it would be lapsed. Next one is Fortune 500 companies use Azure services for their day-to-day cloud computing needs. Next one is Azure supports multiple languages such as Java, Python, C Sharp, and so on and so forth. And it is no brainer to use any other cloud for Microsoft related technologies such as C Sharp, as Azure obviously gives a good support for its own tech stack. Next one being Azure has only Azure has 160 plus data centers compared to its competitors. AWS and GCP are nowhere near to these many data centers. And obviously, around the globe, 160 plus data center gives more benefit to the customers and as well as Azure, right? So, yeah, next one being Azure gives us 600 plus services which customer can use it, right? So 600 plus means all the modern day and main basic related, all the services are included here. And as we speak, they are still working on many of the services which would be launched as soon as possible, right? So yeah, the last one being Microsoft Azure, it is very easy to learn. Hence, learning curve for the beginners is very short. With with this, any new company or any beginner to Azure can easily adapt and work on Azure. In that way, they have made it. Let us talk about next topic, that is Azure product categories. As I told in the earlier slide, as of recording of this video, there are 21 categories. All the 600 plus services are divided into mainly 21 categories for name, and these categories are shown in this screenshot of Microsoft. For example, you can see AI, analytics, compute, IoT, DevOps, machine learning, networking. All these are the categories. Inside that one, 600 plus services are running. Let us go to the next slide. In this section, we would be covering main services used for almost all the use cases. That is uh, compute, network, and storage. As you could see, the below is the infrastructure architecture diagram for any normal software. Let us assume we would be deploying any WordPress on Azure. In order to install WordPress on cloud, we would require a virtual machine, which is nothing but a part of our compute service. Each virtual machine has its own specification. That is, it has its own CPU, memory, and OS type. Virtual machine compute resources are where actual application runs. Second one being virtual network. Virtual network is used to secure our virtual machine in this case, right? It is nothing but a boundary, right? Demilitarized zone. Without a proper access, no one can access the services hosted on this virtual network. Third one being managed disk. If we have virtual machine, then obviously we would be installing operating system and obviously installing WordPress, right? We need a storage in order to save all these files. In this case, we use managed disk as part of our storage services to store all the data. Obviously, this managed disk would be attached to a virtual machine, right? So, yeah, this is the high level of all the three services. Let us go to the last and interesting topic, which Microsoft is testing. That is underwater data centers. Microsoft Azure is testing underwater data center as part of their project NATIC. They have kept the data centers containing 800 plus servers under the seabed. This project was ran for 2 years, which was started in 2018. They successfully tested the result and they could reliably, practically, and with the use of sustainable energy, they can run this data center under the seas. And another fun fact is if you keep the same amount of servers on land and compared to the under underwater data centers, underwater data center component issues we would be getting, it is only 1/8 time of work compared to land data center. Obviously that means if it is underwater, there are chances of issues with the component is very less. If you are interested in learning more about multi-cloud and DevOps tools, please subscribe this channel and like this video. Thank you.